From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. Is Andre Johnson
Jr.
Do not forget the Jr. It's very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And we got another one here today on this Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you out there. Hope you have a lot to be thankful for, as we all do as we get closer and closer this time of year. Thanksgiving is a great holiday. It's a football holiday, and we are football guys. We're here to talk some football here today. So this used to be my favorite night of the year when I was like in the party phase. It was like, the night before Thanksgiving was always the night to go out. So to all of you guys and girls out there celebrating Thanksgiving Eve with a little party style, good luck to you. Good luck for Thanksgiving morning. Hope you're not too hungover for the next day. But we're feeling good. It's Wednesday. Saints had another practice today. It was their second, not their first, because of the way they kind of inverted the week this week. So they're feeling good. How are you feeling, Andre?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like it's the day before a game for me because Thanksgiving, I'm going to eat tomorrow.
Okay.
I am ready to dive into the Thanksgiving spread at my wife's house. And, I really feel like it's the night before a game when you got to get a good night's rest and go in focused and ready to handle your business.
Yeah, we've had a lot of things to do with the house. We've cleaned some stuff up. My mom came over to help clean up. I helped as much as I could. But we had some work this week. So we got a lot going on over the next 24, 48 hours, so should be fun. So anyway, happy Thanksgiving to all you guys. I hope it's a great holiday for all of y'all, and I love the holiday season as we get post Thanksgiving and into the Christmas season. Today, back to the topic at hand, the Saints have now returned from their bye week. As we know, they've now had two practices because they're taking off Thanksgiving Day. So now they are getting closer and closer to putting their final preparations in for the Los Angeles Rams. Saints are 4-7. There has been, we talked about in the last pod, can they win the NFC South? What would it take? Yada, yada, yada. But now there's been some conversation about, the success that they can or cannot have down the stretch. So I figured that was going to be a good topic for us to explore in the big picture today.
Yeah, as we take a look at the big picture, we have to take a look back at what our record predictions for the Saints were. You started off at 8-9. The last time we talked about it, you were 7-10. I've been pretty dug in at 6-11 this whole time. But the Saints.
So, but before we do that, we had our preseason predictions.
Yes.
At some point mid-season, we reset those predictions.
Right.
And you've been at 6-11. I was at 8-9, and I dropped one game. It's probably when they were around like 2-5 or 2-6 at that point. So, all right, continue.
So that's where we were earlier in the season. And now, as the Saints are on a 2-game winning streak, coming out the bye week, looking like a new team, looking refreshed, looking rejuvenated, we take a look back at it and say, hey, can the Saints maybe run the table and finish with a better record than we maybe anticipated them finishing with?
So we are going to revisit our record predictions, and we're going to give you a even newer record prediction for the 2024 New Orleans Saints. We're going to do that game by game here, starting this week with the Rams. First off, let me just go ahead and say I've been in the locker room the last couple of days. I've talked to about 3 or 4 players now. 3. Yeah, 3. So I'll go back again on Friday, maybe talk to a couple of more. Let me just tell you, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. That is the message. Every single player I have spoken to, that has come out of their mouths multiple times, and that includes players and the coaches that have spoke. 2 coordinators have talked. Actually, 3 coordinators have talked. Rizzi has talked. And like I said, I've spoken to now 3 players this week. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. Clearly, that is the message this week. They are not looking at the standings or opponents past Sunday. The Rams are truly all that matters, and if you're a fan of the Saints, that's exactly what you should be looking at. That's exactly what you should want to hear from this group of guys. They have absolutely no business whatsoever looking past any opponent. But we can. We surely can look past an opponent, and that's what we're going to do here today with the final 6-game stretch. So why don't we just start with Sunday? Because, look, the Saints are coming off a bye. They're in a good headspace right now. They're in a really good headspace. Derek Carr, in particular, really just feels like he's in a groove right now, and it's almost like one of those things you just have to do exactly what you've been doing because it just feels like he's in a really good spot right now mentally. It feels like offensively they've found their footing again, they've found their mojo again, and they feel good. Defensively, look, they gave up a lot of yards to Jameis. They gave up a lot of big plays. And the week before, they gave up over 100 yards to Bijan Robinson. It was close to 200 yards rushing the Falcons got. But in both games, they allowed less than 20 points. Right. So defensively, they're doing what they had to do, which is limiting your opponent's scoring. So I think the Rams are a very formidable opponent. I think they're very tough to beat. I think they are a team that got embarrassed on national TV. But the Saints have beat them. They beat them a couple years ago inside the Dome in a game. I didn't realize this. I had forgot that Matt Stafford left that game early.
Yep. Was it Bryce Perkins?
Perkins. Yeah. But I don't remember exactly what point in the game and if the Saints had already kind of pulled away.
That was the Caden Ellis game. I remember
at that
much.
point. I remember that Taysom had a big game that game.
Yeah.
Andy Dalton was a quarterback. But they lost last year because, I mean, look, those two receivers ran circles around the Saints secondary. Kyron Williams ran circles around the Saints front seven. So they've split the last two meetings. But I like where this team is at. This is one of the six. This is one of those toss-up games that I have. I think if you were looking at this objectively before the season, you would probably mark this as an L. I think I did in my original marking of the season. Now it feels like a much fairer fight. And given the Saints' momentum, given the fact they're refreshed and refocused, and given that they've kind of settled in and seem to be clearly bought in on this message, and there is some matchup concerns that I have, so I think this is going to be a very close game. But I'm feeling the momentum right now. I'm going to go with the Saints with a win on Sunday.
Since 2000, there's only been one interim coach to start 3-0.
Yeah.
That's what Darren Rizzi is going to try to do Sunday in the Dome. And that's a tough Rams team to do it against. And when you look at the teams the Saints have played this year, they've had some lucky breaks too. You caught the Eagles without A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith got hurt mid-game. You caught the Chiefs without Isaiah Pacheco and without their receivers and everything that they would typically have, Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice. You've kind of been able to dodge some of the bigger playmakers on your schedule. And if you caught this Rams team maybe a month and a half ago when Demarcus Robinson was their number one receiver, I'd feel a lot better about the Saints' chances here. But that defense is going to get tested this week. Ugo Amadi has been playing great since he stepped in. Kool-Aid McKinstry has been playing a bigger role. Shamar Jean-Charles made a big play against Carolina. He's been involved. They have not seen a Cooper Kupp. They have not seen a Puka Nacua. This Saints defense that has struggled throughout the season in stopping the run, Kyron Williams is going to be one of the better running backs that they've seen all year. This defensive unit is really going to get tested against the Rams offense that has a lot of upside. And again, Rizzi's trying to do something that just doesn't get done. A lot of times when you have to fire a coach and bring in an interim, that interim realizes sooner than later why the original coach was fired in the first place. Interim coaches do not go on the type of runs that the Saints are trying to go on.
It's very true.
That's just what history has said, and that's what Rizzi's trying to go on right now. I like it. I respect it. I love the momentum that the Saints have going, but I think they take a loss to the Rams on Sunday.
That's fair, and I'm thoroughly concerned about that Saints secondary versus their receiver matchup, and the fact that Kyron Williams can run the football on them, and the Saints have yet to show they can truly stop the run. I think the Saints have got to get some takeaways, and I think they got to run the ball effectively, which is something they can do against the Rams.
Yeah,
all right,
saw what Saquon did to him.
Yeah, I don't know if they have quite that in them, but I do think they could if they hit the two-headed monster of AK and Taysom, obviously running the football. All right, what's next? December 8th, who do they have?
The Giants. They're going to New York or New Jersey, depending on how you want to say it. But the Giants up next. How do you think they fare against the Giants?
All right, so this looked like an easy W pre-season when you were looking at it. They didn't look good after the benching and now cutting of Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito. From what I understand, Tommy DeVito is not playing Thursday. Is that correct? Or there's been some reports about that.
Definitely been a little.
May have to check about that. Looks like Drew Lock will go. They play Thanksgiving Day, so by the time you're watching this, they may have already played. You may have already known the result. But my point is, they're playing on a Thursday, so they're gonna get a mini bye leading into their Saints game. And this would be the first road game of the Rizzi factor, or the Rizzi regime, if you will. But it's that's a road game he wants to be at because guess where he's from? He's from Jersey. He's from North Jersey. And you could tell by the last name, by the way he kind of carries himself. He is a Jersey guy. So I think the Saints. I still like the Saints. So yeah, I'm predicting to go on a 4-game win streak with Rizzi. So yeah, I'm going dub with the Giants.
I'm going to go dub with the Giants, too, because at this point, I think it's hard to lose to the Giants. I mean, we talked about the Saints hitting rock bottom when they lost to Carolina. Carolina beat the Giants the week right after that. And since they've beaten the Giants, now their head coach, Brian Daboll, is on the hot seat. The quarterback, Daniel Jones, he's been cut. He just joined with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
That's an interesting situation that's who he chose when the Raiders are out there, but that's a whole nother discussion. And whether it's Tommy DeVito, who the Saints did dominate in the Dome when they caught him last year, or Drew Lock, it's his first year with that team, I think this Saints defense will be able to handle that. Now, there's always the factor of you're going to New Jersey in December. It's going to be cold, and that is not something that this team has historically played well in, but it's the Giants. I think the Saints can take the Giants at this point in the season.
So we both got W's on that one. So you have them 1-1. I have them 2-0 post bye. So I'm a little more optimistic than you. What's next?
This is where it gets tough. We continue in the NFC East, and the Commanders, led by LSU's finest, Jaden Daniels, come down to the Dome. A rookie mobile quarterback stepping in the Dome against the Saints defense that has struggled to stop them. Can the Saints pull what at this point would be an upset over the Washington Commanders?
Yeah. Another interesting matchup, another intriguing matchup, another one that even before we knew anything about Jaden preseason, I said this is going to be a tough game because I just, by the time he would have taken over, he would have gotten into a groove, and he's a running quarterback, and they give him trouble, and they're vulnerable to explosive plays. But Jaden got hurt, and he hasn't looked like himself until those last 2 drives against the Cowboys game, which were 2 incredible drives. And he's got that hard game, tough game, not playing well, just kind of pedestrian, and all of a sudden, poof, he knows when it's crunch time. He can really turn it on. He did the last 2 drives against the Commanders. He did with LSU all the time. But it's hard to deny that he's leveled off a little bit the last couple of weeks. Dealing with an injury, could be the rookie wall, could be Kingsbury, who has a history of sort of tailing off by the end of a season as a play caller, head coach, or offensive coordinator. He's a coordinator here, but coming off of a bye, and they've got a late bye, and that team is going to really relish that bye week, given how rough it's been the last couple of weeks. That quarterback is injured, and even when he's back, I don't think he's 100%. They're going to love that refreshed, refocused feel of that bye week to come in here. Jaden's familiar with the surroundings here, obviously, in New Orleans. I think the Saints will play well, but I'm going to mark this one as an L against Washington.
Yeah, because one thing Washington really does, the Commanders run the football better than almost anybody in the league. We know, because we've seen it in purple and gold, how dangerous Jaden Daniels is when he gets out of that pocket and when he gets to running those read options and the design quarterback runs. And then you've got Brian Robinson, who's been playing well. Austin Eckler, who after a couple down years with the Chargers has kind of really heated it up the last few weeks. And even Jeremy McNichols, who every now and then gets in with the Commanders, has been running pretty well. So that Commanders rushing attack is strong. And like I mentioned earlier, that's something that the Saints have struggled to stop throughout the season, is stopping not just running quarterbacks, but running backs in general. So I think it's definitely a bad matchup, but Jaden Daniels has kind of hit that rookie wall, and we've seen every rookie this season kind of hit it. I mean, Caleb Williams had a bad month. Jaden Daniels the last 4 weeks hasn't been great. Drake May, his offensive coordinator today, just said he needs to cut down on the turnovers. Bo Nix is probably the hottest quarterback from the rookie class now.
No doubt.
I think it'll be a lot closer than a lot of people might expect. I think if there's any game on this schedule the Saints would steal, it would be that one. But I still lean Commanders taking the win.
Okay, so I've got on a 2-1 post bye. You got them at 1-2.
Yeah.
All right, next one is going to be a tough one. That's the Monday Nighter. What do we have?
December 23rd.
As of right now, it hasn't gotten flexed yet.
Yeah, it hasn't gotten flexed. So as of right now, December 23rd in the frozen tundra, Lambeau Field, Saints versus Packers. How you feeling?
Look, if Darren Rizzi wants this job, that's the game he's got to get.
Yeah.
That's the game. in front of the entire NFL world. The entire world is watching 2 nights before Christmas. This team has been awful. Awful. And we will have this pod. We will revisit this topic as we get close to this game. Terrible in prime time since you-know-who left. They just don't win in primetime games anymore. I mean, they won that Monday night game last year against Carolina.
Week 2.
Week 2. I mean, 2022, they lost to Baltimore, I believe.
Yeah.
They lost to Tom Brady and the Bucs. They lost every Thursday night. The Arizona game.
About
the Arizona game. They lost the Thursday night game last year to Jacksonville. Did they play
the London game to Minnesota?
Yeah.
If you count
Did
that
they
as
play
prime time?
Did they play not 2 Jackson? 2 Thursday night games last year? Yes, the L.A. the Rams Thursday night. They've been terrible in prime time, and that's just like the whole nation sees that. So I think they are going to be really prepared for this game, and I think this is a stealable, winnable game. But I can't predict it. I gotta go loss because Jordan Love is playing well. Obviously, it's going to be very, very, very cold. Maybe we'll get the winter wonderland and the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. We'll see how they adapt. In Cleveland a couple years ago, it was the coldest game they've ever played, and they won. Maybe that happens again, but I can't project it right now. Maybe if they win 3 games leading up to Green Bay, I'll feel a little bit different. But for right now, I got to go loss at Green Bay.
Especially considering the circumstances of that game. Right now, there is not a more competitive place in the NFL than the NFC North. Right now, the Packers, who have an 8-3 record, are in 3rd place.
That's unbelievable.
In the NFC North.
I think because, like a 6th seed.
Yeah, the Vikings are 9-2, and the Lions are 10-1. So at 8-3, the Packers, who could still realistically win that division, and whoever wins that division is likely going to be the one who could maybe potentially get the first round bye. So I think at that point in the season, the Packers they're going to have to be playing their best football. They're going to have every advantage because, again, the Saints are going into a place where they're likely going to struggle. It's going to be cold. It's going to be in prime time. The Packers are used to that. The Packers are fighting for everything. The Saints are also going to be maybe fighting for the NFC South title, but we talked in the last podcast about how slippery that slope is. Packers are a really good team. The Saints played them well last year, to be fair, although that was one of Jordan Love's first games that he played in his career. So I lean Packers. So I've got.
We were in Green Bay last year, you and I. We thought we were walking out there with the Saints going 3-0. We had our whoa, this team's got something here sort of vibe, and then all of a sudden we watch it fall apart with Jordan Love, who was not Jordan Love now.
Yeah.
He was struggling in that game, and all of a sudden he found enough in that 4th quarter to give him the win. The Saints obviously collapsed. And it feels like both franchises have went in kind of different directions ever since then. All right, what's next?
Up next, that is a very winnable game. You've got the Derek Carr revenge game against his former team, the Las Vegas Raiders. This one's going to be in the Dome, too.
Yeah, look, Derek Carr, don't try to do too much. The emotions are going to be high, and it's going to be, a difficult thing for him to process. You never know how someone's going to react. It's the first time he's going to ever be in that sort of situation, but he can't try to do too much, but he's going to want to win this game. One thing I know about Derek Carr is a competitive guy, very competitive guy, and look, he was their guy. I mean, that franchise and that organization had really fallen on hard times, and you talk to people with the Raiders, their fan base, like, he was their rock. Like, he was their guy. I mean, he was the one constant in all those tough situations and all that, that losing that happens with a bad organization. Almost like an Archie Manning type when Archie was here with the Saints. And it's amazing how their careers kind of parallel each other. But he's a Saint now, and that's the team he's going to want to beat. And that team is struggling. So I am going with a big fat W. Saints win. Carr gets his revenge, and they improve to 3-2 post-bye week.
I think the Saints blow the doors off the Raiders. I think the Raiders aren't a good football team. Zamir White, who was supposed to be their starting running back, has severely underperformed this season. They've been kind of running with Alexander Madison. Amir Abdullah started last week. And really, everybody on that team has underperformed. They just lost Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell stepping in. Yeah. You got the former Falcon, Desmond Ridder, who's on the team.
Bring him.
Right. They couldn't close Daniel Jones. Like, the only bright spot on that team is Brock Bowers, who probably should be getting some offensive rookie of the year consideration.
My favorite player in the draft. That was my favorite. We talked about it on the pod. That was my guy.
Brock Bowers was here, but Tyler Fuaga's been playing well.
Yes.
Brock Bowers, I think he's second in the NFL right now in receptions, top 10 in receiving as a tight end, quietly having one of the greatest tight end seasons of all time.
Right.
So that's for sure going to be the guy the Saints have to stop, but I think this is going to be a game that means a lot to Derek Carr because he's given some of the best years of his career to the Raiders. He almost had an MVP caliber season in Oakland. I was in Cincinnati when the Raiders came and played the Bengals in a really tight playoff game, and that was Derek Carr with an interim coach leading that charge. So Derek Carr is going to be very motivated to see a lot of people who he kind of grew up in this league with and pick up a win in that one. So I got him getting dub.
So
that leaves me 2-3.
That leaves me 3-2. You're 2-3, and then we close out the season at Tampa Bay. So we've used this phrase a lot. Throw the records out, and it really does. It's very true in the NFC South, and it's very true in this particular matchup in that particular building. I've been to so many games. Raymond James Stadium. It's my favorite city, one of my favorite cities in the NFL. I mean, I love Tampa. It's fantastic. And there has been some fun, crazy, weird games. But last year, they dominated the Bucks. And the Bucks had a lot to play for. The Saints had a lot to play for. It's like the Bucks sleptwalked throughout that whole game. I don't know what's going to be, how the standards are going to look at the end of that season or the end of this season when this game is played. The Bucks may need the win. The Saints may need the win. The Saints could already be eliminated, and it could be a situation where they're playing spoiler. But this is another one of those toss-ups. I had two toss-ups. It was the Rams, and it was the Bucks. And the Rizzi factor wins. The Rizzi factor makes a difference. The toss-up games, I'm pivoting Rizzi until he gives me a reason to believe otherwise. So I am saying it'll probably look at as an upset because they probably won't be favored. The Saints close out the season with a victory and win 4 out of their last 6 down the stretch.
This was the hardest game for me because it's really going to hinge a lot on where these two teams are. I mean, the Bucks could need this win to clinch the NFC South in a playoff spot. The Saints maybe could need this win to clinch the NFC South in a playoff spot. This game could wind up meaning absolutely everything for the Bucks and absolutely nothing for the Saints. But last year, Week 18 against Atlanta, that meant absolutely nothing against the Saints other than sticking it to your rival.
Exactly.
And the Saints came out and played their best game of the entire season. And also, I take a look at Derek Carr on this one. Derek Carr had to sit on the sidelines when the Bucks came to the Dome and absolutely ran roughshod over Spencer Rattler, and Chris Olave got hurt, and the defense was missing tackles, and Bucky Irvin was dancing, in the end zone. It was one of the ugliest games of the season.
Yeah, it flipped on a dime.
This team has not forgotten how the Bucks came into the Dome and stunted on their team, and this was the one for me. When I wrote these notes down earlier, I wrote loss next to the Bucks, but as I think about it more, I think the Saints finished this season strong. That is a toss-up. I'm gonna lean Saints for that one.
All right, you're gonna give them the nod.
I'm gonna give them one.
So I have them 4-2 down the stretch. That would make them, back to my original prediction, 8-9.
8-9.
You have them.
I have them 3-3 down the stretch. So that would leave my original prediction of 6-11 and put them at 7-10.
So a +1 in the projection category. Now, the question is, from 2-7 to 8-9, or from 2-7 to 7-10. That looks good on Rizzi's resume. Is it going to be enough? Obviously, going 6-2 is better than going 5-3. And I said 6 wins was the line. But man, it's hard to ignore how contagious Rizzi has been to these guys, and I'm gonna have a much clearer feeling after this week because this is such a toss-up game, and you can really go either way with it. But if they get to 8-9, it's gonna be hard to watch Rizzi leave this building. It really is, because honestly, you wouldn't just be not choosing him, you would be losing him, because more often than not, when that new head coach comes in, the current staff obviously leaves. So that would be a tough scenario to be in. So I think they finish 6-2 under Rizzi, and I think he becomes, if not the front runner, like maybe option 2 or 1A or 1B, something like that, because I think he's a guy If that would have happened, he would have really rallied, and this team would have really rallied behind him.
Yeah, and I think those swing games are going to be the ones that win or lose him this job, because if you can go into Lambeau, like you said, and beat Green Bay in prime time, if you can take a hot Commanders team that's the darlings of the NFL, because they were supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league, and they're looking like a playoff team right now. If you can continue rolling and do something that only one interim coach since 2000 has done and beat the Rams on Sunday and start 3-0 as an interim coach, if you can go into Tampa, last game of the season, which may mean everything for the Saints, may mean nothing, and beat a divisional foe, those are the games. They've got 4 tough games against 4 playoff contenders, and if Rizzi can win 3 of those while handling business against the Raiders and the Giants like he's expected to, I think when you take a step back at the end of the season and you really look at the candidates, because I don't think a Ben Johnson is going to want to come to New Orleans because of the whole financial situation and all of the roster and all of that. If you're looking at a Joe Brady and if you're looking at an Aaron Glenn, or you're looking at a Darren Rizzi who put the resume forth that he would have in that situation, can you confidently choose one of them over Rizzi? I don't know.
And honestly, how much time we got? We only got about a minute left. I mean, that would be, and you just think of where we were after that Carolina loss. We're all looking at rock bottom, number 1 overall pick, looking at next year's quarterbacks to potentially a winning record, and who knows how close that would get you to, and that might happen, to a playoff berth or a division crown. That's got to mean something, just for the mindset shift, kind of breathe life back into this organization. So, hey, man, I hope it works out for him, because I think it's been fun to watch, and I think it's been really fun to watch how organic it's been. They just kind of naturally, where they just all connect. I asked Aldevari about that today. So this will be interesting to watch. We wanted to do the injury report today, but I don't think we're going to have time. We only have like 10 seconds left. So,
long story short, Eric McCoy did not practice today.
Yeah, that's something to watch. We'll talk about that on Friday. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Thank you for watching us. For Andre Johnson Jr., I am Sean Fazende. We will catch you guys next time on Overtime.